I've been running a software consultancy for the past 3 years. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs who just grow slow and steady through word of mouth over many years, but I've also seen people who want to double down and grow faster. If you want to double down and grow faster, you're going to need to use technology, and this is a video on how to try and do that. First things first, as a business, word of mouth is the cheapest and easiest source of attention, and so it's very organic, it's very easy, and that's why a lot of entrepreneurs use it, because it's a great way to start. Word of mouth doesn't really cost you a lot of energy or time or money, right? It just happens naturally through your customers. Now, word of mouth can grow slowly, but if you want to grow faster than that, you need more attention to your business. You need to bring more attention to your business, and you need to do it for really cheap, because if you're a small business, usually you want to get the most underpriced form of attention. You want the most bang for your buck. Right now, I have a very strong belief that that bang for buck ratio is the best in content marketing. And the reason I say that is because you can produce, like in theory, you can script, film and edit your own videos and post a bunch of them if you had a lot of time. If you put a bunch of time into it, you can get a bunch of views which are entirely free. The only thing you're paying for there is your time. If you want to outsource a little bit of editing and things like that, you can find somebody to outsource it to for relatively cheap, and you still have uncapped upside. So if you make really, really good content, you can get a massive amount of attention without paying for that in a linear way. You pay $50 to edit a video, for example, and if that video gets 100 views or 100,000 views, you pay the same $50. Whereas if you do paid marketing, you're gonna have to pay a lot more to get 100,000 views. If you wanna do cold outbound, you're going to need to send 50,000 messages instead of just one video. And if you personalize those, that's gonna be a lot more time. And even if you automate those, well, I would argue that automated messages kind of suck nowadays. Even if you do cold outreach for those kinds of numbers, you need to get the messaging right. And it's still a relatively cheap form of attention, but it's a little bit harder to make money from it if you don't have your messaging perfect. Whereas content lets you iterate and try many, many times. There are loads of tech tools that you can use nowadays. I would argue way too many, but I'm gonna focus on the content marketing side of it. You can use ChatGPT to automate the content creation side of things in terms of the ideas. So you just execute on the content itself, but you can get GPT to come up with, let's say, 100 ideas for your business specifically to post on LinkedIn, let's say. That is an excellent use of technology that I don't think enough business owners do. And if you don't want to write the LinkedIn post too and you trust GPT to do it, then you can ask GPT to do that as well. I think it's worthwhile to spend some time figuring out how to do that, but there's a way where you can make your own custom GPT within the OpenAI subscription, and that's like 20 bucks a month, and you can customize it to write like you. If you want to know how to do it, you could literally ask GPT itself. You can hire somebody for pretty cheap on how to do it. You can do one of our free tech workshops, which we offer, basically helping businesses figure out how to do things entirely for free. It's a really, really valuable resource. And the other side of this is, okay, you want to automate, let's say, content creation, you want to automate marketing things, but also in order to have more time to spend on the marketing, you want to automate your fulfillment as well. So if you want to grow faster beyond word of mouth, you need to put more time into marketing, and you need to put time into underpriced sources of attention. Using technology can let you automate a lot more of the fulfillment side of your business. So for example, client communication. If you have to send regular updates or something, is there a way that you can automate and schedule those messages so you don't have to worry about that all the time? Now, it really comes down to what kind of business you have, obviously, but you want to automate as much of the fulfillment as possible so that you can really spend time on the marketing side of things. And then you also want to spend time on marketing in case you can't get rid of the fulfillment. So for example, let's say that you run a development company, which is what I do. Now, nowadays I have my team to help me fulfill on deals, right? So they do the programming. I'm not so involved as I used to be, but if I needed to still do it, I'd want to automate as much marketing as possible so that I can get more marketing done in a shorter period of time, because since I have to spend, let's say, 6-7 hours a day programming, I can do enough marketing in 1.5 hours. Ideally, I'd want like 4 or more hours dedicated to marketing, but since that's not the case, how do I squeeze more output with just 1 or 1.5 hours worth of input per day? And the way you do that is by automating, creating systems. First thing is you want to create more stuff, just do higher volume, use technology to help you do higher volume. And second thing is track the data. Understand the data, because if you give GPT a bunch of data and you ask, how do I make these videos better? He'll look at the data and tell you which things to do more of and which things to do less of. If you don't track that data though, it's really hard to understand which ones do better and which ones do worse. You're going to be basically going off a whim of what you think is good. And what you think is good is usually not totally perfect, right? Because there's people who study this, but it takes a long time to figure out what is good and what isn't. And the best way to skip that process is just look at the data and let it guide you. And so automate data collection as well. I think that's extremely worthwhile. And if you're thinking, how the hell do I do that? Start by asking GPT, what data should I collect? And then, because this will be different depending on your situation, and then ask it how to implement that specific thing. Or hire somebody or ask somebody who's a little bit more technical about the kinds of tools that you might use. I want to come up with more free guides and resources, but I haven't done that yet, but I will be putting those out soon. And also, I do those free free tech workshops, which is basically just a session helping people figure out how to build what they want, and it's entirely free. And so there is help out there to figure out how to implement all this stuff. It is worthwhile for you to implement this because it can really double or triple the growth in your business by getting more output with the same amount of input hours, because you've started to, automate some things. It's really, really powerful. Anyway, feel free to comment any questions below. I try and read all those comments and answer as many as possible.